It's time for another edition of Special Edition. From inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star in Frisco, this is Special Edition. Bill Jones along with Newton and Daryl Johnston has returned.
Yes, sir.
Great to have you back, Daryl.
Got lost. I couldn't find my way back.
Daryl embarking on the new XFL season. Training camp starting for the Dallas Renegades this coming week down in Houston. The season starts the week after the Super Bowl. By the way, Rick Gosselin away this week. I think he's doing Hall of Fame duties. Of course, that is fast approaching, and the finalists were named this past week. But let's get to, right off the top, what's happening here at the Star in Frisco. And, of course, after the Cowboys completed the 8-8 season, it's been a rather hectic week. A lot of news and no news coming out of the Star this past week as Jason Garrett's job status hangs in limbo. At the time of this taping, no announcement has been made. There's been all sorts of reports out there. What kind of week, though, do you think this has been for Garrett and everyone here at the Star, Daryl?
I think it's been hard, obviously, to have something that you really felt was going to be concrete when you make that decision to move on from Jason Garrett. We heard the speculation all through the season, and really as you came into the season, you had to improve on what you did in 2018, which means they had to get to the NFC Championship game. They went to the divisional round last year, so you kind of knew what the benchmark was. And when they fell short, I think everybody expected a change and a quick change. But that has not been the case. So I think it's been a very unusual week as we've waited to see the resolution here.
Yeah, I feel that Mr. Jones want to make the right decision. Whether he keep Jason, Jason is long on with, he want to make the right decision for the fans and for his club. So, hey, I'm in a wait-and-see mode. Best to you, Jason.
Everyone is sort of in that wait-and-see mode. We take a look at the accolades of Jason Garrett in his time as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, 3 division titles, 85 wins, 67 losses in the regular season, 2-3 in the playoffs. Of course, in 2016, he was the National Football League Coach of the Year. And here's what the players were saying about their head coach after the conclusion.
Garrett meant to you?
Everything. I mean, he drafted me. He's the reason I'm here. He's a great guy. Respect and love everything that he stands for. The coach he is, the man he is, somebody I look up to. I'm thankful for his impact.
I mean, he has been such an inspiration as a coach. I've learned so much from him. How he handles every situation is unbelievable. And, his words are powerful. And, since the day he became head coach, his ability to motivate and stand tall and give us great perspective has always been unbelievable.
In reflection, I'm very fortunate to have spent the time that I did with Coach Garrett, and whether he's here next year or somewhere else next year, the group of men that he's going to be in front of will be better men and better players because of it.
You hear those players, they sound like they love playing for Coach Garrett. And Daryl, I want to ask you, you of course, are very close with Jason. What do you think his greatest attribute is as a head coach?
I just think that the passion and the energy that he brings to the game every week, diligent in his preparation, just an incredible reservoir to draw from. You're talking about a guy who's been around Norv Turner, Ernie Zampese, John Gruden, Sean Payton, and you'll be able to pull all those great concepts from those guys. I think he's very unique, and you heard there from the guys, a leader of not just guys on the field, but off the field, and I think that that's what really separates him. You're going to use the stuff that Jason Garrett taught you 10 years from now, when you're away from the game of football, because it's not just about the game, but the game of life as well.
And Nate, you've known Jason a long time.
He's just an honest, good, solid man. And, I don't want to go into it. Moose said it correctly. He's just an honest, good man.
All right, we're just getting started on this edition of Special Edition. Much to get to about this Cowboys team and what is to come in what will be an offseason of changes. We do that when we come back in just a moment.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Salvation Army. Doing the most good. And by AT&T. This segment is brought to you by the Texas Lottery. The Texas Lottery proudly supports Texas education and veterans. Play the Texas Lottery today.
This group of guys, we spent so much time together.
day in and day out, and it becomes your family. And for it to end, especially with the team we had, it sucks. It sucks. But it's good, man. We love each other, and I'm proud of how we fought all season.
Ezekiel Elliott with 7 games this season with 100 yards rushing or more. Welcome back to Special Edition. Bill Jones with Daryl Johnston and Nate Newton. We turn our attention to this Cowboys offense. It's a Cowboys offense that in its 8 wins this season averaged 37 points a game. In its 8 losses, averaged 17 points a game. This segment we call Tell the Truth. We could call every segment on this show Tell the Truth, all right? All right, we're going to really tell the truth here on the Cowboys offense. First question, what caused the offense to be inconsistent, Nate?
I think we got fooled by the first 3 games of the year. We had all that great success. But the heart of this team is running the ball, trying to get your offensive line involved. We didn't screen a lot. We didn't get out and let these guys run. We just lost our identity a little bit, and that's where Kellen Moore has to mature just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. You lost your identity a little bit. In the 7 games, you saw the graphic right there. Ezekiel Elliott, 7 100-yard games, 6-1 in those games. The only loss was to the Jets, which is really the one that just nobody can explain this season. But that is who this team is, and it has to be that way. And too many times, the Buffalo game is one that comes back to me, and you go right down the field with Ezekiel Elliott. Do not move off those plays. Force the defense to stop that. That's who you are. It's your offensive line and your running back. Everything comes off of that, and I think we got away from that. What the true identity of this team is too quickly, too often.
All right, now as we approach the offseason, what area needs the most improvement on offense?
I would just like to know who our second tight end is. I mean, Jason Witten had a great year, but we need more from Blake Jarwin and Schultz. And I think either be better run blockers where we set the edge for Zeke, but also get them out into the routes, so they can stretch the field and help the team spread out as a passing team.
And depending on what Jason Witten decides to do, he may be looking for that first tight end.
Right.
Yeah, right. But I think the opportunity, right? I mean, Blake Jarwin just didn't get the opportunity. I think Jason Witten played a lot more than he anticipated when he came back to the Dallas Cowboys. So I think the other thing is just ball security. They're -1 turnover ratio this season. Every team that's in the playoffs right now, single-digit interceptions. Now Dak was good. He only had 11. He had 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but still, all those teams in the playoffs, they're single digits. So that turnover ratio got out of whack for the Cowboys this year at -1.
A little bit better consistency for Gallup, and I think that'll come with time.
All right, it should be interesting what happens at that wide receiver position with Amari Cooper becoming a free agent. And up next here on Special Edition, how about that Dallas defense? What needs to improve in 2020 for D-Law and the Dallas D?
This segment was brought to you by the Texas Lottery. The Texas Lottery proudly supports Texas education and veterans. Play the Texas Lottery today. This segment is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas.
With the guys in the locker room, you try to create good memories, build a brotherhood, turn strangers into friends, friends into brothers in the locker room. That's kind of what happened. So, again, I know I enjoyed that part. Just sucks that we couldn't get it done in the win column.
How about that offseason acquisition from the Miami Dolphins? Cowboys gave up a 6th-round draft pick for Robert Quinn. He had 11.5 sacks to lead the team. We turn our attention to this Dallas defense now here on Special Edition as we tell the truth about the defense, Nate. And our first question, what was the defense's biggest downfall?
Just inconsistent, very, very inconsistent. I can live with no turnovers. I can live with not getting interceptions, but the tackling was so poor, especially up the middle of the field. I'm disappointed in Antoine Woods. You are a better player than you showed this year, and I expected more, my friend.
Yeah, I think the inability for rush and coverage to work hand in hand. And again, this comes back. We talked about it on the offensive side. The 11 interceptions for Dak Prescott. On the defensive side, when you get into a negative turnover ratio, it's shared responsibility on both sides of the ball. I mean, they tied for the league least in interceptions. That's been year after year after year. They've got to find a way to get that fixed. They've got to find a way to get their rush and their coverage, working hand in hand. And until they do that, this defense is just not going to reach the level that you expect them to get to.
And that starts up the middle. with your 3 technique and with your 1 technique, eating and absorbing blocks and better tackling from our linebackers.
You know, those 7 interceptions, that matches the franchise low in the 60-year history of the Cowboys, with 7 picks on the defense. All right, question number 2, what changes need to be made for next season?
We got to go out and get that stud guy. We was thinking that Tristan Hill would show up, but he was inactive most of the season. So we still looking for that stud in the middle, because if we get that stud in the middle, and somehow, some way, Mr. Jones, you can find it to keep Quinn, Robert Quinn, it'll help.
Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn coming off the edges, and if you do get that big guy inside, the one thing I think as football players, we can all handle adversity. It's part of our DNA. Handling success, to me, is more challenging.
Yes, sir.
I don't think some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball handled the success and the notoriety they got in 2018 the right way, and I think it impacted them in 2019.
And there's so many questions going forward. One of those, Leighton Vander Esch, is having neck surgery this month. Now, the prognosis is that Leighton's going to be fine, good to go later in the offseason in time for training camp. You've had those neck issues in the past. What advice would you give Leighton?
Let it heal. Be smart. Just like everything else, once you have the surgery, the most important part is the recovery. And the hard thing about the neck is you can't do anything. No bending, no lifting, no twisting. You got to really allow that fusion to really take hold, and get in as soon as you can. Once you get your clearances, start getting that strength back, because when you talk about the neck, really what it is the nerve damage there really impacted your ability to lift weights and do different things like that. Usually you've lost a lot of strength and sometimes a little bit of weight.
All right, Special Edition continues in a moment as we take a look around the NFC East.
This segment was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by AT&T.
Of course, the Cowboys aren't the only team in the coaching news. So we take a look around the NFC East. Washington names Ron Rivera its new head coach. Rivera spent the previous 8.5 seasons with Carolina. 76-63-1, named Coach of the Year twice. Already gotten a head start on his staff by adding Jack Del Rio, the former Cowboy, as his defensive coordinator. Pat Shurmur fired by the Giants, just 9-23 with Big Blue, which ironically was the same record he posted in 2 seasons with the Cleveland Browns. In hopes of landing his first head coaching opportunity, the Giants interviewed Cowboys passing game coordinator, defensive backs coach Chris Richard. Last season, Richard was a finalist for the Dolphins vacancy. As we welcome you back here to Special Edition, Bill Jones with Daryl Johnston and Nate Newton, the coaching carousel. And let's start with Ron Rivera with the Redskins. Nate, what do you think about Rivera in Washington?
I think that's a good hire. I think he's stable. I think he's consistent in what he does. He's a defensive man, right, Moose? And so, hey, I favor defensive coaches, and I think that's a good spot, because their defense is young. And he can get in there and put his hands on it with Jack Del Rio. They'll win some games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out there in Washington. I love his style of coaching. I think he's a great guy. I think he's going to be a good fit for those guys there. It'll be interesting to me. One of the guys on that staff who I think is really good, and I know that Dan Snyder has already come out and said he wants to keep him there, is Chris O'Connell. One of the more enjoyable guys we had an opportunity to visit with this season. I think he did some nice stuff with Dwayne Haskins at the quarterback spot.
And Ron Rivera already changing the culture in Washington, as he's already gotten rid of the ping pong tables in the locker room. All right, Chris Richard was the first of the Giants head coaching candidates to be interviewed back on Thursday of this week. What do you think Richard would be a good fit in New York, Nate?
He's fiery. He knows defenses, evidently. But, I don't know enough about Coach Richard. He's with the Legion of Boom there for a short period of time as a defensive coordinator. I don't know enough. He did a nice job here. Much success to you, Coach, if you leave. I doubt it. If you leave.
I think he's got a good personality for the New York media. I think that's one of the things that you forget about when you go to New York as a Giants coach. You're going to have to deal with that media, and I think that Chris would enjoy the banter, back and forth. I think the one thing we need to see is there a shift now back, as you pointed out, to defensive head coaches. Some teams like to go that route, but in the past few cycles, it's been the Matt LaFleurs, all those guys off the Sean McVay tree, everybody looking for that next new offensive guru.
And you look at the other openings right now. You've got one in Cleveland, you got one in Carolina, and really, Moose, there hasn't been as many head coaching openings this year as what we've seen in past years.
No, there hasn't. There has not been. There's one guy out there that he interviewed with Cleveland yesterday. I really think that he's one of the top guys in this cycle this year is Mike McCarthy, the old Green Bay Packer head coach. He has spent the entire offseason getting ready. He's got his staff ready. When you hire Mike McCarthy, it's going to be plug and play. I mean, they're going to show up. They've already been sitting down, breaking down film. They are ready to go as a complete staff. So I think that really elevates his opportunities against all the other candidates.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Baylor coach, Matt Rule, who is a hot coaching commodity apparently in the National Football League and interviewed the last couple of years with a couple of teams. All right, we go into 4 down territory in just a moment as we wrap up Special Edition.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T. Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' films and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
Final few minutes of Special Edition. Bill Jones with Newton and Daryl Johnston as we move into 4 down territory here. Some questions to throw at these two. Let's start with a true-false question. Lyle Collins was the most improved Cowboy this season. What do you think, Nate?
OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason, and the regular season. He should have been an all-pro. That's my boy.
That's a true from Nate. What do you think, Daryl?
I thought he had a much better season. He stayed healthy. I thought that was the big thing. I will definitely say he was improved, but I've got one guy that I thought took a bigger step. I like Michael Gallup and what he did in year 2.
Yes, Michael Gallup had a big sophomore season in the NFL. All right, we move to 2nd down now. Other than Tony Pollard, did Dallas whiff on this past year's draft class? Let's start with you, Daryl. What do you think?
I think the perception is there that they did because of what happened with their first pick of the draft with Tristan Hill. He did not live up to the expectations. There was a lot of debate what they were going to do with that pick, and Taylor Rapp and Juwan Thornhill that came after that pick had really good seasons. So I think you have that perception. Connor McGovern on IR on the first, but then you've got Joe Jackson, Donovan Wilson, and Jalen Jelks. I think those are 3 guys that as they stay around the league a little bit longer will show their value. So I think overall it was a good draft. There's just all that concern because of the first pick.
With a little bit of smell of whiff, okay, because Tristan did not suit up enough games to satisfy me. And that is what counts. You judged on your first 2 picks. We didn't have a first pick. He was our first pick. He didn't do the right thing. You at least got to come in and hustle, Moose. He didn't even hustle to get on the field.
Stephen Jones will argue with you. Amari Cooper was the first round pick. That's another story for another show. All right, 3rd down. Should Dallas re-sign place kicker Kai Forbath?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Well, they're hard to come by. Kickers are very important. I think it's one of the big reasons that Dallas is not in the playoffs. They were 75% field goal percentage this year. That's unacceptable. They missed 10 field goals, and some of those were game-changing. Now, Kai Forbath has bounced all over the NFL, so there's always been a reason why people haven't stayed with him. So, yeah, let's sign him and bring him in, but let's make sure we've got some really, really good competition through training camp.
All right, and 4th down, which wild card games will you be keeping an eye on Sunday? The NFC games on Sunday. You got Minnesota playing at New Orleans. You got Seattle playing at Philadelphia. Which one do you like there, Nate?
The Philadelphia Seahawks game, because I know that the New Orleans going to win the other game. This game here, I'm serious. I love them, but
1 point?
Yeah,
by one point.
But this game here, I want to see what Coach Peterson going to do. Yeah.
What do you think?
I want to see the Minnesota Miracle travel down to the Mercedes-Benz Dome down in New Orleans. See what happens there. But here's the one thing about the Seattle Seahawks. They altered their training camp schedule. They practiced at 10 a.m. for all their East Coast games. 7-1 on the road. Their only loss on the West Coast, 5-0. In the Eastern time zone.
All right, that does it for Special Edition. And let's go Dallas Renegades. Johnston. We'll see you next time.
Go Eagles.